One of the questions I get asked more than most is, what army should I start? Now the internet usually answers this question in two ways. The strongest army, the easiest army. And honestly, I think that is some terrible advice. Because if you choose an army because it's winning tournaments, in 6 months, all those rules will change and you'll be in a position where that army isn't strong anymore. You also might end up hating painting it and not liking the hobby side of this army, which is a big difference in terms of trying to enjoy the hobby or not. And if you choose the easiest army, you might not enjoy painting Space Marines, you might not enjoy painting Tyranids. All of these things need to contribute towards whether you think this army is correct for you or not. The best Warhammer army for you isn't the strongest, it isn't the cheapest, and it even isn't the easiest. It's the one you're excited to play and to paint after the 50th model painted and after your 50th game played. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and by the end of this video, I'm hoping you'll have a pretty good gauge on which army is right for you. In the first section, we're going to talk about not choosing an army immediately, and there's a reason why. So before we talk about Space Marines or Tyranids or Orcs, let's just talk about the fundamentals themselves. There's one mistake I see beginners make again and again, and it's from choosing an army for all the wrong reasons. So don't choose an army because your mate plays them. Don't choose an army because they're super strong. Don't choose an army because you've been told they're super easy. Don't play an army just because it's cheap. Don't play an army just because someone on YouTube tells you it's the best. Every single one of those reasons can leave with an army that you may not enjoy. Warhammer isn't a hobby you finish in a weekend. No matter how many, weekend challenges you're going to see, and from me included. You're going to spend time building, painting, playing, transporting, and looking at these miniatures for years to come. So here's a question that you should ask. What kind of a hobbyist am I? And once you answer that, finding your perfect army becomes surprisingly easy. Would you rather paint a small army of Custodes with some of the elite warriors of the Imperium and put all of your effort into painting just 20 individually singular models, which all have a lot of character on their own right? Or would you prefer to paint a horde of 120 orcs with war bosses and pain boys and all of the characters attached and the like? And this boils down to a simple question here. Do you want lots of models or do you want not many models? And I think the answer to this question is going to vary depending on each individual person and each individual person's playstyle. An example with armies with fewer models would be Custodes, Grey Knights, Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights. All of those would have a very low model count, which would really suit people who really like to play elite armies and paint fewer models for their armies. Generally speaking, this means there's a higher cost per model. Sometimes that's not true, but there's isolated instances, but generally the price per model is more. Mainly because of the size, the detail, and the sculpt, and because they put more effort into models that cost more points. Benefit of this as well is that you get your army painted quicker, especially as a beginner when you're just trying to get those 3 colors on there. Having an army of 40 models compared to over 120 is going to make a massive difference to your input and your productivity. Transport is a lot easier as well. You probably get away with a nice carry case from KR or something like that, and you'd probably be completely fine with just getting one of those. However, low model count armies are generally speaking less forgiving to play, so mistakes that you make in games can feel more impactful and you can struggle that way. And then we go on to the armies with more models. So this is armies like Orcs, Tyranids, Genital Occults, and Imperial Guard. These all will have an element of a lot of models that you can field on the battlefield. And this has its own advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages would be epic battles, having loads of models on the battlefield. It feels really awesome to be able to swarm over your opponent and really give them hell. It's also something special about being able to field all those models and they're all finished and just all laid out. It's super impressive to see. However, some disadvantages, you do have a lot of models to paint. Obviously, as a beginner, that can be daunting in a way. And also, the painting does take a lot longer as well. So time to paint is also quite significantly longer. And storing these can be a little bit more difficult, and you might need to put a little bit more time into your storing. Maybe get some big magnetized trays into some big plastic boxes and be able to do it that way instead. And it'll definitely be a lot easier to do it that way. So out of those two options, those are your options for the first one. When you answer that question, this will give you good context for the answer to the next question. Question 2, what excites you most? Do you love giant monsters that run around the battlefield, rampaging, killing any guardsmen in sight, destroying Space Marines at a whim, and being super massive and super impressive? Some examples of some giant monsters would be Tyranids, Chaos Demons, Imperial Knights. If you count those monsters, I do, because hell, hey, they're monstrous as hell. Now these guys are going to be super awesome to try and field in an army, and if this is your sort of vibe, then have a look into some of these armies and have a look at some of these monsters. This might help you make a decision. Do you love massive tanks? So a few armies like this are Imperial Guard, Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Chaos in general, loads of those demon engines walking around with Vashdor, and Marines having loads of those Repexes with Guilliman leading the charge and all that sort of thing. All of it's super fun, and the tanks are super awesome to paint as well. Like, they're super fun, and these kits give you a lot of value for money in terms of the hobby side and playing. Do you love your heroes and your heroic factions like Custodes, Grey Knights, Dark Angels? All of those factions all have some amazing heroes in them, and they're all heroes in their own right, even down to the individual units. They have so much character in them, like the Inner Circle Companions, or with the Custodes, the Wardens, or the Bikes. And the Grey Knights have a load of kit bash opportunities to try and produce these awesome looking characterful minis. Question 3. How much do you like painting? See, this is very important, because if you do not like painting whatsoever, then choosing these horde lists will be very difficult to try to achieve it if you're really going to hone in on wanting to get these armies finished to get them onto the battlefield. So if you hate painting, have a think about some other factions like Custodes, Grey Knights, Imperial Knights, and the reasons why I'd recommend these armies if you don't like painting is they're a very low model count army. They're very simple to try and get onto the battlefield and use from a beginner's standpoint. We're not going to the nitty-gritty competitive side of things, but when you're just getting started, these armies are great for it. And also, they're great to just get starting painting. If you don't like painting and you're trying to get into it, this is a good way to try and get into the painting, because they're less intimidating as an entire concept. You've got 20 models to paint rather than 100. So just bear those things in mind. If you love painting, then I'd recommend something with a lot of details, something that you can really get yourself into. So that'd be stuff like Black Templars, Thousand Sons, Eldari. All of those factions are fantastic and have so much detail on these miniatures compared to the factions I chose to earlier. Now, factions with a lot of detail as a beginner can be very daunting. However, if you love your painting and you really want to get into it, then I definitely recommend having a look at these factions, because they have so much detail, and as a painter, they're a dream. Like trying to learn how to paint gems as a beginner, super fun if you really want to learn how to do that. If you'd like to know how difficult all these armies are to paint, I literally have a video on this. So I did a video on the difficulty of every army to paint, so go check that out if you want to have a look. Question 4 is, how competitive are you? Are you a casual player who just likes to buy what's cool? Are you a competitive player? Are you someone who's trying to do the best you can at events with the stuff you have? Because all these points will sort of lead you to whether you are competitive or not. Now, to bear in mind as a preface to this, the rules change every few months, and the points change. Very broken units become not so broken after a few months, and all of that leads to some advice in general to not chase the meta as a beginner, because you'll be spending a lot of money chasing it, and you'll have a load of backlog of models to paint. And I also think you get better at the game if you don't chase the meta at the beginning, because you get to learn the ins and outs of one army and learn interactions that you can pass over to different armies later on. It's totally okay to be competitive, by the way, just as a heads up. I'm a competitive player as well. Like, I play competitively and casually. I have a nice mix in between. But just, if you're going to try and play competitively, just go in with the expectation that, if you want to chase the meta, you can, but it will lead you to spending a lot of money and lead you to have an army that you don't really love. Question 5, do you like fast units? So a few fast armies as an options are White Scars, Eldari, Drakari, and I'm sure there's other ones out there as well, or very specific examples of armies that can be fast, like Blood Angels and all that sort of thing as well, with all their jump packs. Now, if you want to do a fast-moving army, it's totally awesome. Fast-moving armies are super fun to play, and they offer a lot in terms of, playing it as well. Like having a unit that moves 26 inches and charges like an Eldar is super fun. Having a Raider that can move 12 inches, disembark a unit 6, and then they charge, crazy as well. No one's ever safe from Drakari. Fast armies can really lead you into some really fun playstyles and some really awesome moments in game. Do you like combat? Combat is pretty fun. I know a lot of combat mains who love to run their armies at people like World Eaters, Empress Children, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, to specific builds and all that sort of thing. And all of these really do help for a melee sort of army. Now, melee itself has become really cool in 11th edition as well. It's a lot more like AOS, so that you can just roll a charge and go where you want, which makes it super fun and gives you lots of really cool interactions to bear in mind. Do you love shooting? These are armies like Tau, Guard, and Votan. Obviously, there are other shooting armies as well. Like Ultramarines were violently good at it in 10th edition. But ultimately, these armies have a very strong identity with shooting, with a mix with combat in there as well, with a few of them like Votan's, probably a little bit more mixed arms, but has some very strong shooting you can weaponize. Tau is very much, that's their identity. They are shooty. They have some, guerrillas that can go around and charge and do some mortal wounds, but apart from that, mostly shooting. So if you love shooting and that's your vibe, then you can definitely go for Tau. If you like fast and shooting, there's an entire detachment called Montcard that lets you advance and shoot with Tau, which is pretty fun as well. Do you like the lore, and do you like Psykers? If you like psychic weapons / psychic abilities in general, there are two armies that are really good for you. They've got Thousand Sons and Grey Knights. Thousand Suns, led by Magnus the Red, who is an pretty awesome faction who just run around and do awesome psychic shenanigans. Then you've got Grey Knights, who have uppy downy everywhere, and they get to shoot their psychic weapons. And obviously in 11th edition now, psychic is a lot better, because it basically ignores cover everywhere, because it ignores hit modifiers, which is super, super cool. So if any of those are your vibe, give them a go. For me, I answered these questions, and this was my Night Lords. I love my Night Lords. This is a happy mix of stuff that I enjoy in the hobby. I like to have a tricksy army that goes around and kills some bits here and there, and has some really good melee and some really good shooting. Tanks, not really my vibe. Not gonna lie. Not a massive fan of tanks, but I think tanks are really cool, and I do have them in other armies. But the CSM tanks, bar the Forge Fiends and stuff like that, I like the Chaos Demon engines, they're cool. But I haven't really got around to painting them yet. Like my Lord Discordant was super fun to paint and all that sort of thing as well. Now this is my personal dream army to use if I was going to a tournament. Has some tricks, has some really cool little debuffs, has lots of little, and also the detail on these models are crazy. And also, Chaos Space Marines have loads of conversion potential. Not really something I touched on much through the video, but if you like kit bashing, there's obviously really good armies to go to do that as well. Like Orcs, to be honest, Orcs are the kit bash dreams. CSM, fantastic for it. Space Marines, also great for kit bashing. I'll be honest, there's not really an army that you can't make a good kit bash out of if you really try hard enough. So yeah, I think that's where my army would be, and I'm really happy with my Night Lords and really enjoy using them as they are. So here's my final recommendations to you guys. If you're my brother, I'd tell you to pick Space Marines. If you love painting, I'd tell you to pick Black Templars or Dark Angels. If you just want the coolest experience, I'd say Tyranids or Orcs. And the reason why I give that advice overall is I do think those armies are pretty good for those sort of jobs, but I have mentioned some other armies previously in the video to give you some other examples, so don't take those as gospel. It was nice to actually go into something I'm not ranking things as well, because I think ranking these things would make me like put things into D tier when they don't really deserve to be in D tier. Every army suits someone down to a T. One of my subscribers who's commented a couple of times saying that I put Sisters in D tier a few of the rankings earlier, but it's from beginner friendliness and painting difficulty and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't devalue them. They are awesome and they're a fantastic army. So you know, every army is suited for someone. That's the beauty of this hobby. So rankings are fun and rankings are good to watch to give you a gauge, but ultimately do what you think is coolest. And if you've picked an army and you want to have a gauge on how much it's going to cost to collect, I've actually done a cost to collect as a ranking, so go check that out. Also, if you picked an army, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what army you've selected. I really like to see what you guys are doing and getting up to. Really enjoyed making these videos recently as well, which has been really fun. If you enjoyed this video and videos of the like and like the other videos on the channel as well, please do drop us a like and subscribe. I would love that. It lets me know that you guys like to see more content like this, and I'll be really enjoying making them at the moment. So guys, much love. Bye-bye.